So among all the revelations of the Epstein files, we need to talk about the Epstein's personal doctor, which is this guy, Dr. Peter Attia. You might have heard of him. He's quite famous online everywhere. He has this book, Outlive, because he's focused on longevity. And here I'm going to talk about this because let's say that he appears close to 2,000 times in the Epstein files. I mean, I have already told you that appearing on the Epstein files per se doesn't mean anything, but if you appear, if your name appears close to 2,000 times, then statistically, we should take a closer look. And that's exactly what we are going to do with this section. This video. Former national level tic-tac-toe player, still play for fun, but not quite as good. Also, he, self-deprecating bio, very good. 500,000 followers on X, so that is nice. 1 million subscribers on YouTube. Peter Attia, MD, all right. Very successful on Instagram as well. 1.7 million followers. I don't know how they call that. Yeah, followers on Instagram. And I'm going to give you a glimpse on what we are talking about, or who are we talking about. This guy, in his book Outlive, by the way, shout out to Dr. Cameron Maximus, who compiled a very good thread about all the, let's say, the most disgusting stuff that appears on the Epstein files about Dr. Peter Attia. In his book, Outlive, the book that you saw, this one, the same book that he has prominently on the banner of his account, what did he write on his book? Peter Attia shares that his 1-month-old son almost died and his wife begged him for 4 days to come to the hospital where she was alone, but he didn't due to his quote-unquote important work in New York. What do you think was that important work? Yeah, you guessed right. Turns out that important work was meeting Jeffrey Epstein. And yeah, I wish this was some sort of a joke. We're going to analyze that in detail, but there's a couple things about here. For example, beyond disgusted that Peter Attia, MD, a man who I have followed for years and genuinely looked up to, is in the Epstein files over 1,000, not over 1,000, it's close to 2,000 times. And yeah, this is one of the things that people are mentioning the most. Let's say he said on an email to Jeffrey Epstein, his words, a woman's private parts are indeed low carb. I mean, he's not wrong, but I guess that this is odd. I think it's creepy. Still awaiting results on gluten content, though. Okay, that is a joke. Man, boys joke all the time, but this plus the 1-month-old son thing. Peter Attia, being Epstein's concierge doctor, is by far the weirdest crossover, says Alexander Juan Antonio Cortez, and for real, I agree with that. Champagne Joshi, Dr. Peter Attia, in a 2016 email, see you next time. Hopefully, Jeffrey Epstein in town when I'm back in 2 weeks. I go into Jeffrey Epstein withdrawal when I don't see him. I go into Jeffrey Epstein withdrawal when I don't see him. All right, brother? Okay. Oh my God. And the comments, I needed to go to his latest video on YouTube for the comments. Yeah, don't mind me. I'm just here for the comments. I needed to leave a comment. At this point, Alzheimer's would be a welcome ailment for this guy. That video was about Alzheimer. The thing about Peter Attia is that I can tell anyone about his lifestyle. I need to talk about a couple more things about this. And I'm going to go to the thread compiled by Dr. Cameron Maximus. Again, go follow Dr. Cameron for this. The Epstein files just confirmed that Peter Attia was always trash. This here is there's a message from Jeffrey Epstein, or he was replying to a message that the message said, "Got a fresh shipment." So Jeffrey Epstein wrote to this guy, Peter Attia, with the subject line, "Got a fresh shipment." All right then, nothing suspicious at all, especially coming from someone, and this was in 2015, someone who 7 years before had been convicted of procuring and soliciting underage prostitution. Nothing to see here. Move along. The biggest problem with becoming friends with you, the life you lead is so outrageous and yet I can't tell a soul. The life you lead, Peter Attia to Jeffrey Epstein, the life you lead is so outrageous and yet I can't tell a soul. Ho, ho, ho! Oh my God. Oh my God. And sounds like he had an affair. Okay? Well, I'm going to read the circumstances of that thing with his 1-month-old son who literally almost died and was at the hospital for 4 days. And meanwhile, Peter Attia was doing who knows what with Jeffrey Epstein. So there's this email from June 2018. Neither Jill, my wife, asked me to move out in February, which I did. And a few weeks later, I realized Kelly was pretty bad for me and broke things off fully. So he had an affair. His wife moved away. Thank God. I think that she made the right decision. But he was with this. I don't think this was a good man at all. Here's Peter Attia emailing Jeffrey Epstein's assistant about staying at his New York apartment, like how most doctors stay at their patients' places, and how he goes into Jeffrey Epstein withdrawal when he doesn't see him. All right. So Peter Attia tells Jeffrey Epstein that a woman's private parts are low carb. Okay. If any doctor suspects about any form of child exploitation, it's mandatory for him to tell, a well-known law in every American state. You think that Peter Attia was not aware of what was going on with Jeffrey Epstein? Are we to believe that? No. Peter Attia loves to make fun of obsessive people by saying that they are majoring in the minors. Now we know that he was just projecting. This video is much better to watch on my this one here. I'm gonna play this video right here. This guy wants to expose the deal. I think that he exposed himself.
I'm gonna have French fries. Should I at least have my French fries made in lard as opposed to polyunsaturated fat and seed oil?
How about you have them without Jeffrey Epstein? Oh, I'm going through Jeff withdrawals. Bro, you want to know what's insane about being friends with you? I can't tell anyone about the life you live. Ha!
Yeah, it's wild. It is wild. And again, I'm gonna show you just a few of these documents, but people are going through this, and it is bad. And Cameron Maximus also had pointed out that in his TED Talk, Peter Attia's TED Talk, he had this sob story about, how we need to do better. And when you notice how he speaks about, the way that he sobs and begins like kind of weep about his patients. I mean, I'm going to say it. It is okay if you're a man and you need to cry. But there is only one person, let's say person, that you could allow to see you crying. That is God. If you're a man and you need to cry, very well, we sometimes need to cry. That is okay. But the only one that can see you crying is God. That is between God and you. And that's it. Crying, okay, sometimes, okay, maybe I don't know. There are circumstances in life. Someone died. All right, I will give you a pass. That is one pass that I can give you. But you absolutely Absolutely never cry or hint at crying in front of any cameras, much less in front of an audience during a TED Talk. Because, okay, you're either pathetic or a psychopath. One of the two. There's no middle ground here.
We can't keep blaming our overweight and diabetic patients like I did. Most of them actually want to do the right thing, but they have to know what that is. And it's got to work. I dream of a day when our patients can, shed their excess pounds and cure themselves of insulin resistance, because as medical professionals, we've shed our excess mental baggage and cured ourselves of new idea resistance.
I don't want to keep playing this. He keeps weeping and talking about this with this broken voice, like he cares. And thus I don't want this morons that TED Talk flag my video or anything. So this I need to read this, because this is in his book. He details the exact timing of what happened with his son. I'm going to read this. I wasn't just some garden variety road raging maniac either. It was much worse than that. A few months earlier, and he is very specific, on Tuesday, July 11, 2017, to be exact, I had received a call from Jill, my wife. She was in an ambulance with our infant son, Ayrton, on the way to the hospital. For some reason, he had suddenly stopped breathing and fallen unconscious. His eyes were completely rolled back in their sockets, and he was lifeless and blue, with no heartbeat. Again, this was written by himself on his book. Only the quick reaction of our nanny had saved him. She rushed him to Jill, who is a nurse. Her instincts took over, and she immediately put him on the floor and began performing CPR, rhythmically but carefully pressing her fingers on his tiny sternum as the nanny frantically dialed 911. He was barely a month old. By the time the firefighters stormed into the house, about 5 minutes later, Ayrton was breathing again, and his skin was turning from blue back to pink as oxygen returned to his body. The firemen were stunned. "We never see the kids come back," they told Jill. To this day, we still don't know how or why it happened, but it is likely what occurs when babies die suddenly in their sleep. They choke for a moment on their own saliva, or some other vasovagal insult occurs, and their very immature nervous system fails to restart their breathing. When Jill called me from the ambulance, I was in New York. All right, and what were you doing in New York? In a taxi on 54th Street, on my way to dinner. After she finished telling me the story, this is a story for him, I just said, without a shred of emotion, "Okay, call me when you get to the hospital so we can talk to the doctors in the ICU." She got off the phone pretty quickly, and of course, it's obvious why she was upset. Our son had nearly died, and the right thing for me to say, the only thing to say, was that I was getting the next flight home. Jill stayed in the hospital with Ayrton, alone, for 4 days. She pleaded with me to come home. I called in daily to talk to the doctors and discuss each day's test results, but I stayed in New York busy with my quote-unquote important work. And what was this guy's important work? And you see in the documents, in the Jeffrey Epstein documents, you have a date and a month, day, month, year, everything. What was that important work at the exact same time that he details in his own book? So Jeffrey was emailing Peter Attia, let's have some dinner or something, 9:30. And Peter Attia told him, "Sure, I can come earlier also. If you have a hard stop at 10, let me know." Nice. Very nice. This is a model citizen. Impressive. Now we know that the $150,000 a year Peter Attia was charging his patients, like Jeffrey Epstein, was going to buy at least 3 150,000 watches he can show off on his podcast. Yeah, there's I don't know this. I don't know much about watches, but it seems that these watches each costs 150,000. And yeah, I'm pretty sure that people are going to ask about that. The Richard Mille rotation, silver chains, and tribal tattoos at 50 were pretty good tells. Something was off with Attia. Oh, yeah. The signs were there. Okay. Also, Brian Johnson in the Epstein files 42 times. A lot to talk about, but, well, that checks out. And again, this is the kind of stuff that we're dealing with. There's a lot more stuff to cover in the Epstein files. I will be covering those. Every single thing that has popped up in, let's say, in the most gross way, but I'm gonna do it like a gentleman, right? Trying to blur the heavy stuff. And yeah, again, I'm going to close this topic so we can move on to the end of this episode. Let me know what do you think about this in the comments. My name is Jesus Enrique Rosas. I'm the body language guy. Much love.